welcome. This is OBN Horn of Africa, and today we are going to discuss imperialist Western media pressure on Africa and U.S. military threat to Ethiopia. My guest today is Mr. Kwame Gonza. Mr. Kwame Gonza is a publicity and media director at Kwame Nkrumah Ideological Institute. Welcome, Mr. Kwame. It is really my pleasure to host you again.
Oh, thank you so much, Olua. It's a pleasure for me to be here, and thank you for having me. Greetings from Kwame Nkrumah Ideological Institute in Ghana. Yeah, we travel all around Africa trying to understand what is happening on our continent. So I bring warm greetings to the people of Ethiopia and the people of Africa all around. Thank you very much.
And let me start with this question. What role are Western global media organizations playing in imposing US and its allied forces geopolitical interest on Africa?
The role in the past years has been intense, and it has been significant when it comes to Africa, because there has been this penetration of their media houses into the continent in different ways. And their media houses actually work in conjunction with the United States government and all the Western governments. They normally say that their media is independent of the government, but that is really not true from what we have come to experience when you talk of, for example, what happened in Iraq, Vietnam, Afghanistan, and you can see that their media is not really independent of the state or their governments or their regimes, the regimes in the Western world. They toe as much as possible to the dictates of the state. And this is the same thing which they accuse other countries. So their impact in the last periods, in the last 50 to 60 years on Africa has been really significant. But there is something which happened, in recent years as there has been advance in technology. This advance in technology has sort of democratized the space, the media space, whereby now you can find people, individuals on, for example, Facebook, on YouTube, they have more following than the CNN, for example. So these individuals have been going around the world and getting the correct type of news. And a lot of people now have started scrutinizing the way these media houses have been reporting. Now, this in turn has helped a lot of the disinformation that they have been doing, because they have been for a very long time having monopoly over news networks. But today, that is really changing. And to buttress that point very well, you can see what happened recently, whereby these media houses have tried to attack Ethiopia and a lot of other African countries. You can see the African people on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, all over, they have come out to defend Ethiopia. Not only in Ethiopia, all over the continent, in Kenya, in Ghana, because people now are more aware of what is going on. So the impact actually has, at the beginning, in the 1940s, 1960s, when we were getting independence, it was huge. Because, for example, networks like the BBC had a stronghold on Africa. It was almost the sole distributor of news all over the continent. But today, because of their misbehavior and unforgivable blunders and the peddling of imperialism, today people have become very independent. They don't want to be dictated to by these networks. So their impact has really reduced, and we can see it in the recent attack on Ethiopia, that people were able to understand that these are lies. We cannot continue. So they record they have a big record of supporting their governments in destabilizing other countries, and they work together with their governments, and their impact has really reduced, even though it was big a time ago in the periods in the past years, 50 or 60 years ago.
And let me add this question again. The late president of your country, Ghana, Jerry
Yes.
Rawlings, gave a serious warning to Africa on how dangerous Western media to Africa is. And do you share the concern of your late president?
Yes, definitely, definitely. These are people who understood. There is certain presidents who understand what is going on in the world, and they really love Africa. So sometimes you see that they are faced with the challenge that they cannot stand up to these media houses alone and be able to defend their countries and Africa. As we have seen that in most cases, the African presidents who are good and they want to defend their people have been many times, assassinated, killed. Recently, we saw President Magufuli. He was removed in a very dubious manner and killed. We saw the overthrow of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah in 1966. We saw the killing of Patrice Lumumba in the Congo. A lot of African presidents, the coup d'etat which was put up against Milton Obote of Uganda, a lot of presidents in Africa, Guinea, all over the continent. We saw what happened to Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. All this goes on and on. So I share this sentiment that we have, to guard ourselves against misinformation. And he was right. He was 110% right when he said that we should be careful. And it has been manifested. It has been shown to us what these media houses are capable of. They are capable of destroying full countries. You can see Al Jazeera, what it did during the Libyan war. The rebels, when they came up against a sitting president, Muammar Gaddafi, Al Jazeera was there, France 24, CNN, and over time, fortunately, people have come to learn that these media houses, they are really fake media houses. The news they are reporting, even their presidents, some of them like Donald Trump, he trumpeted these sentiments, during his term, the past, 2019, 2020, he trumpeted these sentiments and said they peddle fake news. They are out there to put out fake news. And it has been demonstrated actually by, recently there was a poll that was taken in the United States and all around the world. The media houses in the United States have lost, viewership, trust in their own people in the Western world. When you talk of CNN, for example, this morning, a figure came out on RT News, Russia Today, that it has lost 76% in the past, just in the past week. So their media houses have fallen below a rating of 35%. All the Western media, their media houses on average 35%. So most of the people in their countries, they don't trust these media houses. So they have been playing the same script for a very, very long time. They have been using the same script. And what they have not understood is that as they have mastered this script is expiring, and there is this advance in technology. And this advancement in technology has brought about also we, the people outside, the Western world, to master their tactics, which they have been using. And so a lot of people around the world, now they have learned that this is not the way to go. This is not the way to report about our countries. We know your intentions. We know what you want to do to us. So I'm very much in line with President J.J. Rawlings, the former president, the late President J.J. Rawlings of Ghana, and his sentiments and what he shared, that we should be really careful about these media houses, BBC, CNN, Al Jazeera, France 24, MSN, all these, because they are just peddling fake news.
Mr. Kwame, it is also claimed that Western media have played a irreversible destructive role, dividing and collapsing several African and Middle East countries such as Libya, Somalia, Syria, and Iraq, and many others actually. And what is your reflection on this?
These media houses, like I said, actually they have not only destroyed, they have not only played a role in destroying other countries like Somalia, Libya, and then now what is going on in the Sahel, you know, Niger, all these countries, and then outside of Africa, Iraq, like you have said, Afghanistan, Syria. But actually, they have also played a very important role in destroying their own society. That is why, like I said, in the United States alone, the rating, the approval rating of their media network is below 35%. Most of the majority people, they don't now get their news from the mainstream media, or what we call the MSM. And it has been significant. The destruction has been significant because these networks are the ones who lead. They lead the destruction. You saw when they were about to attack Iraq, that these media houses, they were the first ones to put out these fake news saying there's weapons of mass destruction, you know, people are dying. And when the United States is the one committing atrocities, like in the first Gulf War, when they put sanctions on Iraq, they don't report it, because around 500,000 children died in Iraq just because of the sanctions that were put on Iraq. When you come to Libya, when the United States supported these rebels, you know, Al Jazeera also used to be a news network that would be relied on, but now Al Jazeera was captured by Washington and the Western world. Now it has started reporting, you know, also fake news. This is a network which people used to rely on. When it comes to Libya, Al Jazeera was one of the first news networks to report how people are dying in Libya and all these Gaddafi's attacking here. But when the rebels took over, these guys, they never reported. They never reported the atrocities that were committed by the rebels. They never report the slavery that is going on even today in Libya. So their destructive appetite and their destructive ways have really been significant. But I'm very optimistic because now media, because of the democratization of technology, a lot of people now have come to realize that we need to get other sources of news. If we want to know about Africa or Ethiopia, we have to look for Ethiopian sources of news. If we want to know about Africa, we have to go to East Africa, we have to go to West Africa and look for West African sources of news. This is not to say that they have not penetrated some of our media houses. They have, but objectively, some of us who have studied and have learned the mechanisms, the machinations of neocolonialism and how it works, we cannot easily be swayed. And I believe even right now and today, the African people are not easily swayed. You cannot easily lie to them. And like I said, the issue in Ethiopia has demonstrated that African people have come out to denounce this kind of, you know, fake news that is being reported on Ethiopia. There is nothing happening there. The soldiers are not advancing, but these guys, they say the soldiers are, you know, the rebels are advancing. They are 80 kilometers away from Addis Ababa. So all these kind of sentiment and sentiment, and you know, the African people have rejected it. Okay, so this destructive, you know, a way of looking at things and neo-colonial way of looking at things, and you know, with the white supremacy and superiority, they have this sort of feeling superiority that they can decide for everyone. And what is, you know, what is ironic, Mr. Oluwa, is that most of these people who report on these news networks, they're just people of average intelligence who are not, you know, most of them, you are more intelligent than them. I'm more intelligent than them. But they bring all these fake news because they have this feeling of superiority or white superiority, you know, white supremacy. They want to spread all this kind of and go around the world telling everyone what to do. And I believe this, as Africans, is what we have to reject. Outrightly, we have to reject this and look for other sources of news.
And as you are a media person, let me raise this question again, Mr. Kwame. Recently, in connection with the current political standoff in Ethiopia, especially in the northern part of the country, BBC World quoted U.S. General William Zana as saying, U.S. force ready to respond to Ethiopian crisis. But after 24 hours, the same media changes the title into U.S. fears regional impact in Ethiopia. That means the question is, as you are a media person, what is BBC cooking?
So this is interesting. You know, that I saw that news. I saw the video going around from Yahoo. Yahoo picked it up. You know, they work in tandem. In 1965, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, who was one of the most avid, one of the most toughest fighters or against neocolonialism, who started warning us about neocolonialism starting in 1948, 1949, when he wrote his books. He wrote books like Towards Colonial Freedom. He wrote a lot of books. Africa Must Unite. These are books which I would like people, you know, to go out there and look for. And then in 1965, he wrote a lot of material. There is another book called Conscientism, the Philosophy of Decolonization. So he left a lot of work. And in 1965, he wrote a book called Neocolonialism, The Last Stage of Imperialism. Neocolonialism, The Last Stage of Imperialism. And when he published that book in 1965, the United States Department of Defense and Department of State, they came and they protested a lot. All the Western media, they protested against this book. And they were supposed to give some money to Ghana in form of aid, which was around $10 million. They seized this money and they said they will not give it. Nkrumah has to withdraw this book from printing. Why did they protest against this book? Because this book was pointing out the intersection between different media houses in the Western world. And in this book, there's a chapter called the mechanisms of neocolonialism. He pointed out how their media houses are used, how all Hollywood is used in destabilizing countries, in taking over countries, how they come through businesses, and how they script their news. Their news, in most of the cases, most cases is scripted. It is not really news. Is a foreign policy. Their news is actually Western foreign policy, American foreign policy. Is not really news. That is why you see that people in their countries now have lost trust, because the news now, it looks to them very clearly what it is. You know, it clearly states what it is. It is a foreign policy. And the foreign policy of the United States and the Western world is to dominate, you know, is to colonize, is imperialist foreign policy. So, and the people, the ordinary people in the Western world, they really don't like this. Now, to come back to this gentleman and his comments, it is very unfortunate. They are very unfortunate, you know, comments, and I sympathize with him that the United States is ready to intervene in Africa. It is really, really, really unfortunate situation. But why did he say this, and why did they withdraw these comments later? One, like we started with, when the CNN started, and Al Jazeera and Reuters and all these, France 24, BBC, when they started reporting falsely about Ethiopia, and we as African people came out, and the Ethiopian people came out on the streets and they denounced this. This was the first loss. You know, actually these people, you see, they have lost this war outright. They have lost, you know, let me say, the first round of the war has been lost. So when they lose, when they fail in coercion and deceit and lies, now they resort to, they decided to resort to intimidation. So this is what this gentleman was doing. He was trying to intimidate. After they have failed, they come out with tactics of intimidation. And the African people, still they said, we cannot be intimidated. You know, Ethiopian people say, we will stand and we cannot be intimidated, because we are not scared of the United States in whatever form it comes, you know. So they feel like this, they are entitled to tell everyone what to do, to intervene, to come from thousands of miles away and come to Africa and tell us what to do. And the fact is, we really don't need anything from them. So this, what I said is white supremacy. They feel this sort of superiority complex. They have this complex of superiority, which is outdated because the world has changed. And these guys are not changing with the world. What is ironic? They have failed to change with how the world is changing. They are so, still seated into the old way of thinking of white, supremacy, going around colonizing everyone, dictating everything to, and this is an old way of thinking whereby the world has left these things way, way, way back, and the world has moved forward. The world where it is today is that the nations, they will not allow anyone to dictate. No one nation will allow another nation to come and dictate to it what to do. And so this is what we see, that he makes these reckless comments because for a very long time, the United States and the Western world, no one has been holding them accountable for reckless statements, for reckless actions. And now today, when the people of the world have woken up, they are more alert now. They are ready to hold the United States and the Western world accountable for its action and reckless statements. All of a sudden, they retreat. That the East African, the region will not, the East African region will not feel good about United States intervention. And this is true because Africa, for a very long time, has looked at Ethiopia as its, beacon of hope and freedom. This Ethiopia is the embodiment of African freedom, is the embodiment of African hope, is the embodiment of African self-determination. And really anyone who touches Ethiopia, the African people's ears, all of them, they will be up. When Libya was attacked, you didn't see this kind of reaction by the African people all around the world and all around the continent. And at the start of the 20th century is the same situation which happened during the Battle of Adwa, when Italy tried to attack Ethiopia and Ethiopia fought against them to the point that it defeated them, completely defeated them. All the other African people all around the world, in the diaspora, in the Caribbean, in the United States, in Europe, all around the continent, they were ready to come to Ethiopia and defend Ethiopia and fight it out. So this is the sentiment which we see all over the continent, that the African people, they cannot allow anyone to touch Ethiopia. And this is the fear. This is the fear. You see that they made comments and at the same time they retreated backwards because of this fear. So what I would like to say is that Ethiopia really has nothing to fear about these people because the African people are fully behind the Ethiopian state.
And do you think that Western media warfare on Ethiopia produced same results they achieved in the other failed states like we have mentioned earlier, both African and Middle East countries? No,
I even laugh at them. I laugh at these people. I laugh at them. When they are reporting their fake news. What I say, they are living at the start of the 20th century. In the 1900s, these guys, that is where they are living. They are living in the middle of the 20th century, 1950s, the 1960s, where they think that the tactics which they use, the script which they used, in the 1960s is the same. And that script is not the same. We have mastered that script which they have been using, and they can't use it on us again. They cannot achieve, Albert Einstein, one of the greatest physicians, say that insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Okay, so we have mastered the script which they have been using. We have mastered the tactics which they have been using, and we can't take it anymore. Africa's literacy rate now is climbing to almost 70%. Okay, in the 1960s, Africa's literacy rate was below, 30%, even below 20%. Now you can see this trajectory, and these are the things which these people are not studying. These people are not paying attention to. They are not paying attention to the fact that the continent now is occupied by 70% youth. 70% of the people on the African continent are below the age of 30 years. So what does this mean? This means these people are almost around 90% educated people. So they can't take this bullshit. They know, the African youth know how the United States was built. It was built on the back of African resources, on African slavery. The Europe was built on colonization. It was built on imperialism and exploitation of African resources and people. So we know them very well now. And this is what they have failed to understand. So they are stuck in this illusion that they are still powerful. You know, there is a summit which happened in Alaska between the United States at the beginning of this year, between the United States and China. And one of the Chinese envoys told Blinken, when Blinken was trying to speak to China in a position of power, and he told him that the age in which we are living, you cannot talk to China in a position of power. You cannot dictate to China what to do. And this is the situation, the same situation, you know, with Africa. The United States and the Western world now is not in a position to dictate to any African country or, you know, any country around the world what to do. It cannot tell us what to do. Like I said, these are people, you look at people like Blinken, you know, Joe Biden, these are people of average intelligence. They are not really special people. So they cannot go around telling other, you know, people like Pompeo, Mike Pompeo, you know, these are people of average intelligence with wanting moral, you know, their morality is questionable, you see, and they have spoken this themselves on camera. And they said, people like Pompeo said that we used to lie when I was the director of CIA. Plain, you know, in plain sight, he said they used to lie. So, and these are people who are running around the world telling others what to do. You see, so you look at people like Uhuru Kenyatta, for example, is more intelligent. Like when you look at Senator, you know, when you look at Secretary Blinken. So I really don't expect Blinken to come to Kenya and convince President Kenyatta and tell him that he should turn against Ethiopia or should stand against African interests. You know, it would be very unfortunate, and it would be President Uhuru Kenyatta disrespecting himself. And even people like Buhari of Nigeria, if he listened to Blinken, what he's saying, and turned against African interests, it would be unfortunate, and it would be a disrespect to himself. Or Macky Sall of Senegal. If President Macky Sall of Senegal came up and allowed himself to be convinced by Blinken, you know, Secretary Blinken of the United States, to turn against African interests in favor of the United States, it would be unfortunate. And all these presidents, where Secretary Blinken is going around the world, if they allowed themselves to be convinced against the interest of the African people, I think it would be unfortunate, and it would be a disrespect. It would be a complete disrespect, you know, to the African people and to themselves and to their integrity. And their people, I believe they would lose trust in them. Like, for example, you look at Kenya, a lot of people, most of the citizens in Kenya are in support of Ethiopia. They are. So it would be disastrous, and it would be disrespectful, and for them to go ahead and not stand up for Africa, the African people, and in Ethiopia in particular, in favor of the United States, and in favor of convincing and blackmail by an average person and a person of average intelligence, like Secretary Blinken, or people like Pompeo, or people like Joe Biden, the president of the United States. These are people with just average intelligence. So they cannot speak us to, you know, they cannot speak to us anymore from, you know, a position of power. They cannot speak to us anymore from a position wisdom, that they have wisdom, so much wisdom more than us. They don't have it. They don't have the wisdom. You can see their economies, how they are collapsing. You can see Europe is in chaos. They go out there in the Middle East, they cause wars, they kill people, they cause destruction. And now you have immigrants flowing all over into Europe. And now they are fighting that they don't want immigrants. So you can see that they make unwise decisions. These are not wise people. These are not intelligent people, because they don't have foresight. They don't think, forward into the future to see that what are we doing now and what will be the results. So these are not people we want on the African continent to convince us on anything, on doing anything, on solving anything. They don't have any problem they can solve on this African continent. We have been here on this continent for thousands of years. We have built civilizations on this continent for thousands of years. We never were with these people to solve any problems, and they cannot solve any problem for us. They have failed to solve their own problems in the United States and Europe, and they are in chaos, income inequality, mass incarceration of African people in the United States. All this, they can't solve this problem. Immigrants on there spreading wars and chaos, economic decline, contracting, the economies are contracting, inflation is killing the United States now. So they can't solve their own problems. So this is the spirit with which we have to approach this problem and tell them that, look, you have problems in your house. You can't come here to tell us how to solve our problem. So you can't come and tell Ethiopia how to solve its problem. Ethiopia is growing at an economic rate, at a growth rate of 10%. The United States is contracting and is printing money, and inflation is killing us. You can't come and tell us how to run an economy. We know a lot about human rights. We saved ourselves. We fought against your colonialism. We know so much about human rights than you. You cannot come to us and tell us about human rights. So I believe that this is the attitude with which we have to approach this challenge.
Well, Mr. Kwame, and why is America exercising such imperialist policy on Ethiopia, especially after Prime Minister Dr. Abiy Ahmed came to power?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think that is a very timely question because of the way they are, they are going around the world. When you look at the formation of the United States, which is an extension of Europe, actually, it carries most of the sentiments of the Europeans. So that is why you see the Europeans now, they hide so much behind the United States. Whatever the United States does, they are following, and and even some of these decisions the Europeans make basing on the United States foreign policy, they are outright, stupid decisions. Like when they followed the United States in the invasion of Iraq, invasion of Afghanistan, invasion of Syria, invasion in Libya. Europe is close to the Middle East. So the United States is miles away and an ocean across, the Atlantic. So it will not suffer with these consequences of immigration and chaos in the Middle East and all these, like we've spoken about immigration, which the chaos of immigration which Europe is now facing. Now, the United States, when it was formed, it outright started carrying and going forward with this sentiment of the colonial and the imperial mentality of Europe, because most of these people who formed the United States, who came there and invaded the United States and killed a lot of people, indigenous, Americans, the Red Indians, they wiped out all of them, the genocide, they carried out a genocide on those people and killed all of them. And we see that this is what they also want to continue doing around the world in Africa. It is not only actually Ethiopia which they are attacking. Right now, we can see that the United States is at war with China, is at war with Venezuela, is at war with Cuba, is at war all over the world, is at war with Syria, is intervening everywhere, is interfering everywhere. So this is the nature of the United States and the Europeans. This is their nature, just to interfere everywhere, just to push this mentality of white supremacy. They think they are superior to everyone, so they should go around telling everyone what to do. Now, in the past, they achieved their objectives, which objectives were exploitation of other people's resources, to grow their economies with force. Slavery, they started with slavery, and they used the colonialism. So all these were means of achieving economic supremacy, economic dominance. And then they used these means of colonization onto other countries. So they went around in Philippines, in South America. The United States has what is called the Monroe Doctrine, whereby it says that anyone who intervenes in South America will come up against the interests of the United States, and the United States will start a war against them. So all this was domination. Now, when they cannot anymore carry out outright intervention and domination and war and colonialism, they resort to propaganda means as a way of justifying we are going to do human rights, just like colonialism and slavery. Because when they came to Africa during slavery, they said they are coming to civilize the people. They are bringing Christianity, colonialism. They are coming to civilize people. They are bringing us education. We had our own systems of education. We were civilized way before you. We were civilized way before anyone else. So now they come and they tell us they are bringing us human rights. It's the same way. Nkrumah said that colonialism only changes in in form, but it does not change in substance. Colonialism does not change in substance. It only changes in form. So what they are trying to do is that they change the tactics of achieving the same objective, and that objective is exploitation. And when they cannot exploit you anymore, they resort to propaganda and blackmailing you, insulting you before the world, and all kind of ways so that they can keep you dominated. And now recently we have seen the emergence of China. It has been growing very fast. China is growing very fast, and they came up, they saw that China is growing very fast, is going to overtake them. So they decided to open a war on China, an economic war, and this is what we are seeing with Ethiopia. The issue with Ethiopia is that they have been disrespecting the Black people for a very long time. For a very long time, they have disrespected the Black people. They think that we cannot build our own things. We cannot build our own militaries. We cannot build our own economies. And Ethiopia has been growing at a figure of almost 10%, 9%, 7%, okay, economically. Fastest growing economy in Africa, okay? So this is a threat. And most of this growth, which right now is being spearheaded by Prime Minister Abiy, is a threat to them because they are not involved. If you look at the model of development which Ethiopia has adopted, is very similar to the model China has adopted, whereby the state is heavily involved in bringing about rapid transformation, rapid development. We have seen rapid industrialization, the construction of the Grand Ethiopia Renaissance Dam, 7,000 megawatts, 7,000 megawatts. This is the 7th biggest dam in the world. This is the biggest dam in Africa. Straight up, no question, this is the biggest dam. So we have electric train in Ethiopia, which is not there in the United States. These trains are not there. So these are things they are scared of. So this fear, instead of working hard and competing, they decide, to resort to blackmail. They decide to sabotage other people's development. So this is their fear. And the other thing is that Prime Minister Abiy has advocated for African solutions to African problems. And this is a fear because they have been exploiting Africa for a very long time. So they fear that this mindset of Abiy, Prime Minister Abiy, will be transmitted to other African presidents, will be transmitted to other African people. And this is something actually which they can't stop, because the Prime Minister Abiy belongs to the generation which came after, the generation of independence. If you look at Prime Minister Abiy, is one of the youngest, leaders on the African continent. So I believe that he belongs to a generation that is very close to ours, the generation which I said that is more educated, is more understanding of the world, is more aware of the world we are living in. So I believe that this is the fear that the Prime Minister Abiy knows so much. He knows so much, just like the generation which we belong to, about the world, that we really don't want any more dictates from the West. We really don't want them to come and tell us this is how you run the economy. This is how you build a country, because we know how to build our countries. And this is what the Prime Minister Abiy has really demonstrated.
And let me forward this question again, Mr. Kwame. And can the US bring back the Trojan horse TPLF to the power?
To be honest, this is another laughable situation. You know, this policy, the policy of destabilization, is the same. Like I said, is a script which they have been playing, and it is an old script. This is a failed enterprise, outright, completely. This is a failed enterprise. A few days ago, last week, at the beginning of last week, these guys, they said the TPLF was, they said it was 80 kilometers, 120. At first, they said it was 120 kilometers away from Addis Ababa, is about to conquer and take over Addis Ababa. And they said it was 100 kilometers, and they said it was 80 kilometers. And up to now, they have reached. So this is a failed enterprise. It is ridiculous. It is just ridiculous. So this is all propaganda, which is intended to scare. So these are scared. So when they fail, you know, they failed. When the media failed, their media propaganda failed, and the Ethiopian people were able to stand up against it and mobilize and come out on the streets and say, we cannot accept it. And the whole world is so. Because you cannot, these days, you cannot keep the people, you know, when people want something around the world, in any corner of the world, when they come out to say something, it will be felt all around the world, because we are not living in the world of the early part of the 20th century, whereby only a few people knew what was going on around the world. Now, when Ethiopian people want something, or African people, the sentiment of the African people is being put out there, the whole world will feel it. And it has been already felt now that the African people are not in support of any intervention in Ethiopia. And the African people will defend Ethiopia with every last breath and blood of their life on this continent before the United States comes.
Mr. Kwame, by the way, it was this propaganda way that they overthrew Mengistu Haile Mariam. And I want you to compare that time generation and this time generation.
So that propaganda, so the difference is that the people during the period of Mengistu, the people were not so much aware. They didn't have access to this information. And like I said, the literacy rate during that period, it was not the same like today. The people now, they have access to information. People have read books. People have known how the Western world was built. We know, and a lot of people know. So they built their countries on blackmail and deceit and deception and colonization and violation of human rights, rape, you know, mass killings of people, genocide. In the Congo alone, 12 million people were killed in the Congo. But these are things which have not been spoken about. And this lack of accountability has been going on for a very long time. And today, the people are able, because of the education, you know, compared to the period of Mengistu, people are able to bring them to accountability. People are able to ask questions. So the issue of TPLF is not an elected government. And the people know, if you are talking about democracy and you are practicing a different thing, then you are a liar. The Western media, they are a liar. They have been lying to the people. So you told us that we should practice democracy. Okay, let us practice the democracy. We have elected the Prime Minister Abiy, and now you are telling us that we should remove the Prime Minister, you know, with the rebels you are supporting. And this is what the African people are saying. No, things cannot work like this. You cannot say a different thing and do a different thing and go out there and support the rebels. So the rebels, they have to respect the constitution. The rebels cannot be supported because they have not been elected by the Ethiopian people. According to the Ethiopian constitution, the president should be the one in charge of the country. and is responsible for the national security of the country, Ethiopia. So anyone who tries to destabilize the country or the continent, the president has to come out and bring order to the country, because the speed, the rapid rate of development that is happening in Ethiopia, it cannot be destabilized, it cannot be disturbed. And this is the motive of the imperialists, that they find a small group of people who are discontented and they try to slow down the development in the country. And I want to applaud actually the stand which the Ethiopian people and the Prime Minister Abiy, which he has taken and said, we cannot continue to allow the UN to interfere in the affairs. The UN should work in Ethiopia under the direction of the Prime Minister. It cannot go out there and be giving weapons and communication equipment to TPLF. TPLF, if it has legitimate grievances, it has to address these grievances, within the line of the constitution of Ethiopia. And the Prime Minister has not been a bad person. When he came to power, he went and extended a hand to Eritrea to try to mend, relations, to bring these relations, to have good relations with Ethiopia. And I do not think that the Prime Minister Abiy would not listen to the grievances of TPLF. He would, but they have to address these grievances within the constitution. They cannot start becoming a rebel group to destroy the country that is developing, which is developing at a very fast, at a rapid rate, and start destroying, because people's lives are being improved. So you cannot stop this development and claim that you are fighting for some legitimate cause which is outside the constitution. You cannot come up and you start attacking the national, security, apparatus, the army, the national army, and claim that you are working within the constitution. You have grievances. Your grievances, you should address them within the constitution of Ethiopia, and the Prime Minister and his cabinet and his government will listen to these grievances, because he is carrying the mandate. He has been given the mandate of taking care of the country and its people and improving the people's lives. So if the TPLF have any grievance, they should address it within the constitution, not to try to destabilize the country. And because it will not work, and it has not worked. And the African people, they will not be in support of this. We will not agree all over the region. Today, there is a summit that is being held by the Ugandan president of East African leaders about the situation in Ethiopia, because they cannot allow this destabilization in the region. We cannot allow this group to disturb a legitimate government. And more so, this is the headquarters. This is the headquarters of the African Union. This is the capital. Addis Ababa is the capital of the African state and the African government which we are working on. So the Africans, they cannot allow a rebel group, a terrorist group, to come up against a legitimate, democratically elected government. So it is a lie, even these Western, support which they are giving them, the limited support, which is not going to help them. Because in the north, we have Eritrea, which is up against the United States. They cannot move anywhere. They cannot get any help anywhere. So they have to come, to the table and put out their grievances, and the grievances will be addressed by the government and the African people and the region around.
And what do you think will happen if the US tries to militarily intervene in Ethiopia in connection with this conflict in the northern part of the country?
I can tell you outright that if they try to intervene in Ethiopia, that will be a very unfortunate situation for them. And I think they will witness some things which are very, very dangerous to their militaries. In 1993, the United States and its allies came up and intervened in Somalia. And there is a situation which happened in Somalia there. That situation even culminated into a movie which was called The Black Hawk Down. In that, the Somalia people, they rose up and banded together, and they were able to beat the United States very well, very, very well, and defeated it to the point that the United States ran out of Ethiopia. I mean, they ran out of Somalia. Now, what we are seeing in Ethiopia is that the United States is coming up against a united people, 100 million people, who are more united than what was in Ethiopia, what was in Somalia. The Ethiopian people, 100 million people, are more united than what happened in Somalia to them in 1993 when they went there and destroyed Somalia. And I can tell you that on this African continent, if they try to intervene and put boots on the ground in Ethiopia, it will be very unfortunate for them. I do believe that the United States soldiers, they have been taking them back when they are dead, but they will not, this time they will not go back because they are coming up against a more organized people, a stronger people than Somalia, what Somalia was. They're coming up against Ethiopia, a more organized people with more organized security than what Somalia was in 1993. And on top of that, the Ethiopian people have the support of the African people. The African people, they cannot stand by when the United States goes on misbehaving like that. And the regional countries, they cannot stand by. And we, as the Pan-African world also, we will not hesitate to mobilize the African people who want to come and support Ethiopia to fight off any invasion and to fight off any interference in African affairs. That situation in Ethiopia that the United States wants to intervene and wants to put boots on the ground and what will happen to them, I think that it is they should be ready for something which they have really never seen. They have just left Afghanistan, where they have been defeated. The United States, when you look at it, it has actually never won a war. You can talk of Afghanistan. You can talk of the chaos in Syria. You can see in Libya, the United States ambassador was killed in Libya when they invaded Libya and they tried to help rebels there. The war is still going on. That country, more than 10 years, is coming to almost 20 years. It has not stabilized. They were defeated, in Vietnam, in Korea. So they have really never won a war. They were defeated in Somalia and they ran away. So I think that the United States, the parents of the soldiers, the people who are serving in the United States militaries, their parents have to warn them that this is a very dangerous expedition which they want to take. And a military incursion into Ethiopia, it will be very unfortunate them that even their bodies, I'm sure they will not go back. This is not a threat in any way, but what they are playing with, they are playing with a very dangerous situation. They are playing with a civilization that has been here for thousands of years, and a civilization that has people who are ready to defend it. And we have seen this, for the last week when Ethiopian people came out on the streets and said, this situation we will not allow it. So whatever grievance the TPLF as a people, as an Ethiopian people they have to address it, within the context of the Ethiopian constitution. So they cannot allow themselves to be blackmailed and coerced by external forces to, destabilize, their brothers. So they are our brothers, and we as African people, we welcome them to come and we sit on the table, sit with other African people in order for them to address their grievances and their concerns. So any attempt by the United States, to try and use coercion and bring their troops into East Africa, because the bringing of troops in Ethiopia, it will be treated by other African people as an invasion, as an attempt at colonization, and this, it cannot stand in the 21st century. The African people will not allow this. We will not hesitate, to meet them when they come, that we will deal with them, and it will be an unfortunate situation because they are already, engaged in different parts of the world and antagonizing different countries. I do believe that a lot of countries will support Africa in this invasion. And I encourage them that they should not even try it. They should not really try it at all, because it will be disastrous for them.
And what should Ethiopians to do to abort this military intervention that America is dealing with?
First of all, the Ethiopians have already won the war. And like I said, this is not even an Ethiopian situation. This is an African situation, a situation which the whole of Africa has its ears on the ground, and all Africa has the ears on the ground trying to understand what is happening every day, what is happening in Ethiopia. So the Ethiopian people, they have just to stand strong and defend the country. And behind them is the other African people. The Ethiopian people stood against disinformation by the BBC, CNN, and all the other networks, Al Jazeera, Reuters, France 24. They stood against this, and that war, the first round of the war has already been won. The Ethiopian people have already won that war. So there is a need to listen to the Prime Minister Abiy and what he has said, that people should come out and stand to defend the country. Those ones who have to register, let them register and register their weapons, ready to defend the country. There's no, this one, we are not going to, to be politically correct about it, because this is an emergency, and an emergency situation has been announced in Ethiopia for the next 6 months. So the people should be ready to defend the country, and the other African people, they will not hesitate to come in to help to defend Ethiopia, because this is our hope. Ethiopia is our hope as African people. Ethiopia is our symbol of self-determination. Ethiopia is our symbol of independence, and anyone who plays with Ethiopia from outside Africa, will come up against a steel, a wall of steel, and a very thick wall of steel. So this incursion or attempt at going into Ethiopia militarily, it will not end well for anyone who tries to engage in such an enterprise.
Mr. Kwame Gonza, Director of Publicity and Media at Kwame Nkrumah Ideological Institute. Thank you very much for your time and for your analysis as well.
Thank you so much, my brother Oluwa. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Dear viewers of OBN Horn of Africa, this is all about our discussion for today with Mr. Kwame Gonza, Director of Publicity and Media at Kwame Nkrumah Ideological Institute. Till next time, goodbye.